ಸಂಸಾರದಾವ ನಲನಿಧಲೋಕ ತ್ರಾಣಾಯ ಕಾರುಣ್ಯಗನಗನಾತ್ವಂ ಸಂಸಾರದಾವ ನಲನಿಧಲೋಕ ತ್ರಾಣಾಯ ಕಾರುಣ್ಯಗನಗನಾತ್ವಂ ಪ್ರಾಪ್ತಸ್ಯ ಕಲ್ಯಾಣಗುಣನವಾಶ್ಯ ವಂದೇ ಗುರೋ ಶ್ರೀಚರಣಾರವಿಂದಂ ಶ್ರೀವಿಗ್ರಹಾರಾಧನ ನಿತ್ಯನಾನಾ ಶೃಂಗಾರ ತನ್ಮಂದಿರ್ಮಜನಾರ್ದೋ युक्तस्य भक्तां च नियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् श्रीविग्रहाराधन नित्यनाना शृंगार तन्मंदिर्मजनार्दो युक्तस्य भक्तां च नियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् चतुर्वेदाशे भगवत्प्रसादो स्वदन्नतृप्तां हरिभक्तसङ्गाम् कृत्वैवा तृप्तिं भजते सदेवा वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् श्रीराधिका माधव्योरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना प्रतीक्षणा स्वाधनलोलुपाश्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् निकुञ्जयो नो रतिकेलिसिद्धै यायलिभिर्योक्तिरपेक्षणीया ततिदक्षा ततिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् साक्षात्तरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे युक्तस्तथा भाव्य श्रूयते वसाब्दे किन्तु प्रभोर्या प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादा भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादा न गति कुतोऽपि यस्य प्रसादा भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादा न गति कुतोऽपि ध्यायन्तु वां तस्य यशस्त्रीसन्ध्या वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् ध्यायन्तु वां तस्य यशस्त्रीसन्ध्या वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् 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 नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादिशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरा भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Nila Madhav Radha Nila Madhav Radhe. Jaya Radha Nila Madhav Radha Nila Madhav Radhe. Jaya Radha Shyam Sundar Radha Shyam Sundar Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Jaya Subhadra Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sita Ram Jaya Sita Ram Jaya Sita Ram Jaya Lakshmana Hanuman. Jaya Narasimha Dev Narasimha Dev Narasimha Dev Jaya Narasimha Dev. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahaladaladaine. Hiranyakashipurvakshaha. Shilatankanakalaye. Ito Narsimha Paratom Narsimha. Yeto yeto yami tatom Narsimha. Bahir Narsimha Hrudaye Narsimha. Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapaje. Tava Kara Kamala जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे। केशवधृता नरहरि रूपा, जय जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे, जय जगदीश हरे। जय नरसिंहदेव, जय नरसिंहदेव, जय नरसिंहदेव, जय नरसिंहदेव। जय प्रहलाद महाराज, जय प्रहलाद महाराज, जय प्रहलाद महाराज, जय प्रहलाद महाराज। जय जय प्रभुपाद, 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद। जय जय गुरुदेव, 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 जय जय गुरुदेव। नित्य गौर हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल, नित्य गौर हरि बोल। नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी, नमो नमः। तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी, नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो एय अभिलाषी राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो एय अभिलाषी जितो मारा शरण लो तारा वंच पूरन हो कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास नयने हरिबो सदा जुगल रूपरासी এই নিবেদন ধারো সাক্ষীর অনুগত করো সেবাধিকার দিয়ে করো নিজ দাসী दीना कृष्ण दासे कोए ये न मोरा होए श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम हरे Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani. Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Nityai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nityai Gaura Hari Bol, Nityai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nityai Gaura Hari Bol. श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय। वृंदाये तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रद देवी सत्यवताये नमो नमः। वृंदाये तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रद देवी सत्यवताये नमो नमः। वृंदाये तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रद देवी सत्यवताये नमो नमः। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय।
Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaguna Lalita Shri Visakha Nivitam Sha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Dinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Dinamini Shiva Savanavi Devi Dayitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vigyana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhu Ujjwala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhakti Da Shri Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Vira Bhava Bhamestvam Desta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Savabhoma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Namo Gurkishoraya Shakshadvairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambhude Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Guru Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Guru Vir Bhava Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhoma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vanchakalpa Durabhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gurutse Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhakta Avataram Bhakta Gyam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Jayatam Surator Pangur Mama Manda Mate Gati Matsava Swapadam Bojo Radha Madan Mohano Divyadrindaranya Kalpa Dumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamano Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswaner Gopir Gopinatak Striye Strina Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrinavaneswari Vishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadi Radhi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Sadma Sukalpa Vriksha Lakshavite Susurabhira Vipaliantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Kananda Arinda Dalayataksham Varhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarpa Kotikamaniya Visesha Sobam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamadya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakili Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalita Niyata Prakasam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakilendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaita Machutam Anadi Mananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purisham Navayovanam Cha Vedesa Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsara Sampagam Yo Vayo Ratapi Manasomani Pungamanam So Pyasti Abhichintya Tatve Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitam Jagadanta Kotim Yas Chakti Rasti Jagadanta Chayayadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Bhava Bhavita Diva Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Pusa Sukta Yameva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham bhajami ananda chinmaya rasa pratibhavita bhistavirya eva nicharupa tayakalabi goloka eva nivasata kilatma bhuto govinda madi purisham tamaham bhajami premanjana charita bhakti vilochanena santaksa deva hidesu vilokayanti yam shama sundaram achintya gunaswarupam govinda madi purisham tamaham bhajami ramadi murti sukalani menatistana navataram akarod bhuvanesu kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumam Yo Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti Yokoti Svasesu Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Asesa Bhutam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Yasya Jagananda Satani Sute Trigun Yatad Visaya Veda Vataya Manam Sattva Valambi Parasattva Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Matayamana Suya Prani Nam Pratifalam Smaratam Upetya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jayaya Jasram Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijidamni Tale Chatasya Devi Mahesu Haridama Sutesu Tesu Te Prabhavani Chaya Vitas Chayena Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Srististate Pralaya Sadhava Sakti Reka Chaye Vyasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichanu Rupam Apiyasya Chitestate Sa Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Siram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Nahitatat Pritakasti Hetu Yasam Bhutama Pitatasam Abhaitikar Yat Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Departed Evahita Santanam Abhyupetya Dipayate Vivitayetu Samadu Dharma Yastadri Evahitya Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Karna Narna Vajale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Mananta Jagananta Saroma Kupa Adhara Sakti Mavalambya Param Swamurtim Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalamata Valambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jaganandanata Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kala Visesa Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Basman Yatasma Sakilesnu Jesu Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitat Vatatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidanu Karta Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Pala Vigam Vinidaya Kumbha Dvande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignam Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahika Ganabambu Maruti Sascha Kalasta Tatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Viphavanti Visanti Yamcha Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savitasa Kalagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Desesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kalachakro Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayas Sutastapamsi Brahmadi Kita Patagavati Jiva Yadata Matra Vipava Prakata Prabhava Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrinda Gopa Matavendra Mahoswa Karma Bandhana Rupa Falapajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdahati Kintu Jabhakti Bhajam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bitti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurava Sevi Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadvisim Tanamapurete Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Sriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Drumabu Mischintamani Ganam Aitoyam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriya Saki Chidanandam Jyoti Param Apitata Svadyam Apicha Sayatra Siradi Bihisravadi Sirabi Vyasta Sumahan Nimesa Dakyava Rajati Nahiyatra Pisamaya Bhaje Svitadvipam Tamaham Ika Ihagolakam Itiyam Vidantas Te Santakshiti Virachara Katipaye Shi Guru Vastika prayers Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. Just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master, who is an ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. And at least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master's divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraja Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, text number 13. Pura Maya Proktam Ajayanabhye
Pura Maya Proktam Ajayanabhye
Padme Nisanaya Mamadi Sarge
Padme Nishannaya Mamadi Sarge
Jnanam Paramam Mahima Vabhasam
Jnanam Paramam Mahima Bhasam
Yatsurayo Bhagavatam Vadanti
Yatsurayo Bhagavatam Vadanti
Pura,
Pura
in the days of yore,
in the days of yore
Maya,
Maya
by me,
by me
Proktam,
Proktam
was said,
was said
Agyaya,
Ajaya
Ajaya,
Ajaya
unto Brahma,
unto Brahma
Nabhye,
Nabhye
out of the navel,
out of the navel
Padme,
Padme
on the lotus,
on the lotus
Nisannaya,
Nishannaya
unto the one situated on,
unto the one situated on
Mama,
Mama
my,
my
Adi Sarge,
Adi Sarge
in the beginning of creation,
in the beginning of creation
Jnanam,
Jnanam
knowledge,
knowledge
Param,
Param
sublime,
sublime
Mat Mahima,
Mat Mahima
my transcendental glories,
my transcendental glory
Avabhasam,
Avabhasam
that which clarifies,
that which clarifies
Yat,
Yat
which
which
Suraya,
Suraya
the great learned sages,
the great learned sages
Bhagavatam,
Bhagavatam
Srimad Bhagavatam,
Bhagavatam
Vadanti,
Vadanti
do say.
do say
Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O Uddhava, in the lotus millennium, in the days of yore, at the beginning of the creation, I spoke unto Brahma, who is situated on the lotus that grows out of my navel, about my transcendental glories, which the great sages described as Srimad Bhagavatam. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The explanation of the Supreme Self, as given to Brahma, and already explained in the 2nd canto of this great literature, is further clarified herein. The Lord said that the concise form of Srimad Bhagavatam, as explained to Brahma, was meant to elucidate his, meaning Krishna's, personality. The impersonal explanation of those 4 verses in the 2nd canto is nullified herewith. In other words, the impersonal explanation of those 4 verses in the 2nd canto is nullified herewith. Sridhara Swami also explains in this connection that the same concise form of the Bhagavatam concerned the pastimes of Lord Krishna and was never meant for impersonal indulgence. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande Hari Bol. O Uddhava, in the lotus millennium, in the days of yore, at the beginning of the creation, I spoke unto Brahma, who is situated on the lotus that grows out of my navel, about my transcendental glories, which the great sages describe as Srimad Bhagavatam. Jai Srila Prabhupada. So, this Srimad Bhagavatam is the summum bonum transcendental literature that explains who Krishna is, his qualities, his unique qualities, his unimaginable powers, infinite powers, both in the spiritual world and the material world, and how he is present everywhere in the material world as Paramatma, and in the heart of every living entity and in every atom. So all this very high-level transcendental knowledge was explained by Krishna to Brahma right in the beginning of material creation. And Brahma, because he was willing to engage in tapasya, or voluntary acceptance of austerities for purifying his mind and senses, therefore he qualified himself to hear and understand directly from Krishna the absolute truth. So that's very interesting. And what is being said here when it says in the lotus millennium? Well, that means that from the navel of Garbhodaksha Vishnu sprouted a lotus stem, and at the height of the stem was a whorl or a flower, a lotus flower. And Brahma was the mental creation of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and he appeared on the flower at the top of the stem. The stem at that time was not, in other words, the stem is there, but the material creation had not taken place yet. So Brahma became confused. He didn't understand what his origin is. So he went into the stem, but he couldn't see anything. He went all the way down to the bottom and came back up again. And so then he heard two syllables, ta, pa. And he understood from his previous life what they meant. And it meant that he should engage in voluntary austerities to be enlightened about who he is, what his purpose is, who is his origin, etc. So after a very, very long time of meditative tapasya, he heard the flute of Krishna, and he became illuminated with knowledge. And Krishna actually spoke to him and revealed some things about the spiritual world to Brahma, and also enlightened him with knowledge of how to proceed populating the world with all the different 8,400,000 species. Therefore Brahma became the original Prajapati, and then he had sons, and they were also Prajapatis, or what you would call birth fathers. And in this way, the material creation appeared. The step-by-step how it happened is explained in summary in the second canto. Now in the third canto, it's going to explain it in a lot more detail, exacting detail, so that there's no doubt how the material creation takes place. The spiritual world is not created; it's eternally existing, as is Krishna, as we are also. We have eternal souls before birth in this body, and after the death of this material body. So But because we have limited free will, it's possible that we can misuse our free will, and then by developing some type of envy of Krishna, we fall down into the material world. And the purpose of the material world is to give us an opportunity to purify ourselves and go back to the spiritual world. Or another possibility is that we contaminate ourselves more and more and stay in the material world in the cycle of birth and death. So we can go either way: stay here and suffer continual birth, death, old age, and disease, or purify our senses and our mind and our intelligence and engage in devotional service and go back to Godhead. So there's a great mystery that we're going to discuss now about the material creation. And that mystery is revealed in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 4 nutshell verses of the Bhagavatam. There are 4 nutshell verses of the Srimad Bhagavad-Gita, and there are 4 nutshell verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam. When we say nutshell verses, it means that these 4 verses embody the whole knowledge of the Bhagavatam encapsulated. And if you understand these 4 verses, then you'll understand the mystery of the knowledge that's in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Just like if you understand the 4 nutshell verses of the Bhagavad-Gita, which are in the 10th chapter, verses 8 to, let me just see where that is. It's the 10th chapter, verses 8 to 11. What?
8.
Yeah, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so anyway, we're going to discuss the 4 nutshell verses in the Bhagavatam today, and the mystery of how to understand Krishna. So, the first, we're going to start with text 31, Canto 2, Chapter 9, text 31. That's not the first verse of the 4 nutshell verses, but it's sort of an introduction, and it says, the personality of Godhead said, knowledge about me, as described in the scriptures, is very confidential, and it has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. The necessary paraphernalia for that process is being explained by me. You may take it up carefully. So this Krishna is speaking to Lord Brahma. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, Lord Brahma is the topmost devotee of the Lord within the universe. And therefore the personality of Godhead replied to his 4 principal inquiries in 4 important statements. So Brahma is asking 4 very significant questions. And this is called, which are known as the original Bhagavatam in 4 verses. Okay, these are the nutshell verses that we're going to hear in a minute. These were Brahma's questions. 1, what are the forms of the Lord, both in matter and in transcendence? In other words, what forms does the Lord assume in the material world, although those forms are not made of material energy, but they seem to be, but they are in the material world. And then what forms does he have in the spiritual world? Second question, how are the different energies of the Lord working? And he has many different energies, right, in 3 categories: internal energy, marginal energy, and external energy. And number 3, how does the Lord play with his different energies? And number 4, how may Brahma be instructed to discharge the duty entrusted to him? Okay, so these are Brahma's 4 nutshell, 4 questions that will that Krishna will answer as the 4 nutshell verses on which the whole Bhagavatam is based. But you see, it's all about Krishna. That's what the Bhagavatam is. It's all about revealing to the serious devotee, who is Krishna? He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But what does that mean? And there's a full expose of that in the Bhagavatam. So, the prelude to the answers is this verse under discussion, wherein the Lord informs Brahma that knowledge of him, the Supreme Absolute Truth, as it is stated in the revealed scriptures, is very subtle and cannot be understood unless one is self-realized by the grace of the Lord. So, there's no such thing as self-realized by speculation or self-realized by yoga or self-realized by karma or self-realized by mystic, by achieving the 8 mystic cities, etc. No. It's self-realized how? It is by the grace of the Lord. This is the beginning of the mystery of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Lord says that Brahma may take the answers as he explains them. This means that transcendental knowledge of the Absolute Supreme Being can be known if it is made known by the Lord himself. So, there are 2 books where the Lord makes known knowledge of himself. Number 1 is Srimad Bhagavad-Gita. And number 2 is Srimad Bhagavatam. Because you see, in different parts of the Bhagavatam, Krishna is speaking directly about himself when he instructs Brahma and others. And also in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are many pure devotees who are speaking about Krishna, like Sukadeva Goswami and Sutta Goswami and Sonaka Rishi, etc. And Lord Shiva also, and Lord Brahma and Indra. So you have both Krishna speaking directly in the Srimad Bhagavatam and also pure devotees of Krishna speaking about him. And it says, this means that transcendental knowledge of the Absolute Supreme Being can be known if it is made known by the Lord himself. By the mental speculation of the greatest mundane thinkers, the Absolute Truth cannot be understood. So you see, there's a mystery about it. The greatest thinkers in the world, the Greek philosophers, and then all the different philosophers in the West, and then also different philosophers in the East, it's impossible for them to understand by speculation and mundane wrangling. It cannot be understood. The Absolute Truth cannot be understood by that. The mental speculators can reach up to the standard of impersonal Brahman realization. But factually, complete knowledge of transcendence is beyond the knowledge of impersonal Brahman. So, even if you take LSD, you might be able to realize something about Brahman realization. You'll see flashes of light, and you'll see a certain oneness, right? But that's completely artificially induced. And therefore, if you follow the Mayavad philosophy, you might be able to merge into the Brahman effulgence and experience oneness. But that is not really full knowledge of Krishna. That's very partial knowledge of Krishna. One aspect only. But there are 3 levels. That is Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So we see there's a lot missing. The most of it is missing. And why? Because there's a mystery of how to access Paramatma and Bhagavan realization of Krishna. And we're going to hear that mystery in a second. Thus it is called the supreme confidential wisdom. Out of many liberated souls, someone may be qualified to know the personality of Godhead. Manusyanam sahasresu kaschit jati siddhaye jatatam api siddhanam kaschit mam veti tattvataha. Out of many, many people, one may try for perfection. And out of many, 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 many people who have attained perfection, hardly one will know Krishna in truth. So that's why although this is an open book, the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad-Gita, by the mercy of Prabhupada, let's say, because he has translated it, the Bhagavad-Gita as it is into English, and Srimad Bhagavatam as it is into English. So we're able to read this knowledge. Otherwise, we would have to learn Sanskrit. That takes at least 12 years or more. And then we would have to be completely honest and not be a speculator. And we would have to be engaged in devotional service. And in other words, it would be a very long process that very few people will actually undertake. But by the mercy of Prabhupada, it's become immediately accessible if we desire it. So what will influence our desire to actually imbibe this knowledge, and how to imbibe the knowledge? That is what's being discussed here, and it's called a mystery. There's a big mystery about it, because it is not an academic process. Everyone is being taught the academic process to acquire knowledge, but that's not the way to assimilate the knowledge of Krishna. It's based, and this is why it's called, there's a mystery about this. In the Bhagavad-Gita, it is also said by the Lord himself that out of many hundreds and thousands of people, one may try for perfection in human life, and out of many liberated souls, one may know him as he is. Therefore, the knowledge of the personality of Godhead may be attained by devotional service only. So, now we're beginning to hear what this mystery is. Rahasyam. So, in the Bhagavad-Gita, in the verse, it says, Rahasyam hiyatad. In the verses in the 4th chapter, let me take a look at it, where it says how we can understand why Krishna chose Arjuna to be the recipient and be the person who would renew the parampara that had been broken previously. So he says, Rahasyam hiyatad uttamam, that this mystery, or this rahasyam, is the pathway to understanding him. And what does that mean? He says that Arjuna is his, and therefore he becomes eligible for rahasyam hiyatad uttamam, to understand this mystery, this confidential mystery of Krishna's transcendental qualities. Okay, so he says rahasya means devotional service. In other words, the mystery is you can only understand Krishna through devotional service, not academically, not by speculation, not simply by studying, right? Because this is revealed knowledge. It is not acquired by any material process. It can only be gifted to someone by the mercy of Krishna. Okay, so then it says, Rahasya means devotional service. Lord Krishna instructed Arjuna in the Bhagavad-Gita because he found Arjuna to be a devotee and friend. He's Sakha, and he is Bhakta. Without such qualifications, one cannot enter into the mystery of the Bhagavad-Gita. So there he mentions the word mystery. Rahasya means mystery also, but that mystery is devotional service, pure devotional service. Therefore, one cannot understand the personality of Godhead unless one becomes a devotee and discharges devotional service. This mystery is love of Godhead. So now the real meaning of the word mystery here is achieving love for Krishna. Now, do they say anything like that when they're teaching academic knowledge? No, there's no mention of it at all. Even when we have, Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti this, Bhakti that, the word Bhakti is there, but do we actually understand that one must attain love of Krishna so that Krishna will reveal the knowledge of himself to the devotee? It's not clearly understood, but here it's clearly said, right? Therein lies the main qualification. The mystery is love of Godhead. Therein lies the main qualification for knowing the mystery of the personality of Godhead and to attain the stage of transcendental love of Godhead. Regulative principles of devotional service must be followed. Regulative principles of devotional service must be followed. The regulative principles are called Vidhi Bhakti, or the devotional service of the Lord, and they can be practiced by a neophyte with his present senses. Such our present senses are contaminated, right? But we can purify them by engaging our senses, mind, and intelligence in the service of Krishna under the direction and tutelage of bona fide spiritual masters, Shiksha and Diksha gurus. The regulative principles are called Vidhi Bhakti, or the devotional service of the Lord, and they can be practiced by a neophyte with his present senses. Such regulative principles are mainly based on hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord. It's just like someone said to me yesterday, he said, "Oh, Prabhu, when are you going to take us to Naimisharanya so we can hear Srimad Bhagavatam?" I said, "Are you crazy?" I said, "We have Naimisharanya right here every day." What are you talking about? You don't have to go to Naimisharanya in India to hear Bhagavatam. You're hearing it right now, every day. Right? This is Naimisharanya, right? So sometimes people say, the grass is better on the farther hill, No, grass could be just as good here if we practice it properly. Right? You can achieve love of Krishna here in Seattle, just as you can achieve love of Krishna in India in the Holy Dham. Right? It all depends on our consciousness and what our goal is. So if our goal is to love Krishna and show that love through devotional service, you can attain perfection here also. Such regulative principles are mainly based on hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord. In other words, when it says glories of the Lord, that means you're hearing and chanting about all the unique qualities of Krishna and his wonderful transcendental pastimes with his devotees. This is what we should be hearing every day. Right? And such hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord can be made possible in the association of devotees only. Lord Chaitanya therefore recommended 5 main principles for attaining perfection in the devotional service of the Lord. The first is association with devotees through hearing. Second is chanting the glories of the Lord. So you chant Hare Krishna, and you also can chant like we chant Brahma Samhita, we chant the Guru Pranama prayers, we chant the Samsara Dava prayers. We chant so many different prayers, glorifying the Lord and glorifying the Lord's pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. So Lord Chaitanya therefore recommended 5 main principles for attaining perfection in devotional service. The first is association with devotees through hearing. Second is chanting the glories of the Lord. Third, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from the pure devotee. Fourth, residing in a holy place connected with the Lord. Well, that could be the holy dham in India, like Vrindavan. It could also be the temple, anywhere in the world. The ISKCON temple, where we're actually hearing on a regular basis the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. And then number 5, worshiping the deity of the Lord with devotion. So that's another, but it says with devotion, not perfunctorily. That's a nice word, perfunctorily. Perfunctorily. Perfunctorily.
It's
Means mechanically.
an action or a gesture carried out with a minimum effort or reflection.
Right. So but the way we should worship the deity is with devotion. So that's the mystery right there. It's the devotion. It's which means with love, with affection, genuine affection and love for the Lord. Such rules and regulations are parts of devotional service. So, as requested by Lord Brahma, the personality of Godhead will explain all about the 4 questions put forward by Brahma and others also, which are parts and parcels of the same questions. Okay, so this is like an introductory verse to the 4 nutshell verses. Then the next introductory verse says, all of me, namely my actual eternal form and my transcendental existence, color, qualities, and activities, let all be awakened within you by factual realization out of my causeless mercy. So now, there is the secret of success in spiritual life and in life in general. That is, to be able to attract the attention of Krishna. Now, how do we attract the attention of Krishna? So Krishna becomes very merciful and reveals to us this knowledge, because this is revelation theology. It is not academic theology. It's based on revelation, and revelation is something descending from the Lord to us. So what does that mean exactly? Okay, so now it's being explained. The secret of success in understanding the intricacies, that means all the mysterious things of knowledge of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is the causeless mercy of the Lord. Okay, when it says causeless mercy, it's not because we are a big pundit, or we know how to say many mantras, or how to perform different pujas, or we perform great austerities like Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, or we are very, very rich and give big donations, or we basically almost starve ourselves to death fasting, right? It's none of those things will induce Krishna to reveal himself and to bless us with knowledge of himself. Therefore, his giving of knowledge to the devotee is causeless mercy. It's not something that we did specifically, like achieve this, like we're very rich, or we're very famous, or we're very handsome, or beautiful, or we're very knowledgeable. No. It's the causeless mercy of the Lord. He has to have some reason to be attracted to us. Now, how can we actually attract Krishna? Well, this is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 2nd chapter, Shinvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hiryantak Stohi Badrani Vidunoti Suhit Sitam. What does that say? That says that to hear about Krishna from Vedic literature, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad-Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best-wishing friend, and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. There it is. When he sees that we have a real interest in hearing about him, and on a regular basis, that's what this verse is saying, right? Then he's in our heart. He begins to act as our best wishing friend and purifies the mind and heart of the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge as he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees. he becomes fixed in a devotional service of the Lord. Nasta presu abad Jesu nityam bhagavata seva bhagavati uttamasloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki, right? And then tadarajas tamo bhavo kamalobodayas chetir tayaranavitam stitvam sattve prasidati. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lusts and avarice are diminished. And then evam prasana manaso bhagavat bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness. See, pure goodness. This brings up the theme of our of this year's Ananda Mela, living in the mode of goodness, right? And he remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God. This is a science. What does science mean? Science means something that is true in all frames of reference and in all time. That's science. Something that's true in all frames of reference and in all time, past, present, and future. That means what? The science of Krishna, that is Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. That's the science of Krishna. It's true in all places and in all time. Okay, and then Vidyate Hridaya Grantis Chidyante Sarvasamsaya Siddhyante Chasikarmani Justa Evatmanisware. Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard night of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of samsayam samagram, understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth, personality of Godhead. Okay, so there's a stumbling block here. It says, it severs the hard knot of material affection. Whoa, everyone is trying to attain and maintain material affection, and we're saying this is actually a stumbling block to pure devotion to Krishna. Yeah, because what is meant by material affection? It means body to body. It's not soul to soul. It's body to body. That's what the material affection is about. So someone who is a relative, they have a bodily connection with you, right? So that person may even be crazy, like you could be Aunt Mary, crazy Mary, you know, your mother's sister, right? But still, there's some material affection there, you know. So you just tolerate crazy Mary because it's your mother's sister, right? But wait a minute, this is a stumbling block in spiritual life. This material affection. Now, the opposite of it, or let's say the optimal thing is soul-to-soul connection. That's a different thing now. Body-to-body connection is very limited because you can only have so many parents and so many grandparents and so many relatives, right? But soul-to-soul connection is infinite because, the most significant soul-to-soul connection is your soul connected to Krishna. See? So the material affection is actually a negative thing, but spiritual affection is a positive thing. Right? So therefore, thus Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram. What does that mean? Understanding the Supreme Personality, or Supreme Absolute Truth, personality of Godhead, without any doubt. Right? Okay, so this is how we can attract Krishna. It's by taking this real avid, that's a nice word, A-V-I-D, avid interest in hearing on a regular basis bona fide knowledge of Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by genuine devotees. what does it mean? Avid? It's very
So it's having or showing a keen interest or enthusiasm for something.
right, keen interest and enthusiasm for hearing about Krishna. All right. So now it says, the secret of success in understanding the intricacies of knowledge of the absolute truth, the personality of God, is the causeless mercy of the Lord. So, if you have this avid desire to hear about Krishna, already you have the seed of the causeless mercy of the Lord. See? Because someone inspired you to have this avid interest in hearing every day about Krishna. Even in the material world, the father of many sons discloses the secret of his position to the pet sons. The father discloses the confidence unto the son whom he thinks worthy. An important man in the social order can be known by his mercy only. Similarly, one must be very dear to the Lord in order to know the Lord. The Lord is unlimited. No one can know him completely, but one's advancement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord can make one eligible to know the Lord. So this is the mystery. This loving service of the Lord can make one eligible to know the Lord. Here we can see that the Lord is sufficiently pleased with Brahmaji. By the way, you don't have to be a pundit, you don't have to be a big scholar to love the Lord or to be engaged in the loving service of the Lord. The gopis themselves, it is said, the gopis themselves are not big scholars or pundits. They're cowherd girls, right? They take care of cows and they take care of children, right? So if you just look at it from the outside, you say, well, these are just ordinary girls. You know, what's so special about them? What's special is they love Krishna. And they're always thinking of Krishna, and they're always serving Krishna, whether he's physically present or not. So, therefore, it says, but one's advancement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord can make one eligible to know the Lord. Here we can see that the Lord is sufficiently pleased with Brahmaji, and therefore he offers his causeless mercy to him, so that Brahmaji may have the factual realization of the Lord by his mercy only. So how did Brahmaji attract the attention of the Lord? He performed tapasya for 1,000 celestial years. A celestial year is much longer than a year on the earth, right? It can be hundreds of times longer, hundreds or thousands of times longer than a year on the earth. So he meditated for an extremely long period of time. Just like Vasudeva and Devaki, in their previous lives, they did tapasya for 12,000 years to have Krishna as their son. 12,000 years. Right? So, but here's the good news. Lord Chaitanya has made this whole process easy in the age of Kali, because Kali Yuga is so difficult time to make spiritual advancement. So therefore, Lord Chaitanya has come and made it easy. Kali dosa nidhi rajan astihi eka mahat guna kirtanad eva krishnasya mukta sangha param bhajet. Although Kali Yuga is full of inauspicious things and very difficult for people to have spiritual life, but there's one great quality about Kali Yuga. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra given by Lord Chaitanya, one can easily go back to Godhead. You see, and there are other benefits also in Kali Yuga. So, but this is the greatest benefit, simply by chanting the holy name. In fact, the holy name is so powerful, you don't even have to be initiated. However, because we come from such low backgrounds, initiation is a must. Although theoretically, you could become liberated without being initiated, But in Kali Yuga, because of our very low level of existence, it's absolutely necessary. Because by following sadhana bhakti, which means we have to have self-control, we have to be on time, we have to do so many services and so many fasting days and so many this and that. Therefore, all that regulation and what you would call rigorous training requires the help of bona fide devotees or gurus. So then it says, he offers his causeless mercy to him so that Brahmaji may have the factual realization of the Lord by his mercy only, or Krishna's mercy only. In the Vedas also it is said that a person cannot know the absolute truth, personality of Godhead, simply by dint of mundane education or intellectual gymnastics, meaning speculations. One can know the supreme truth if one has unflinching faith in the bona fide spiritual master as well as in the Lord. Such a faithful person, even though illiterate in the mundane sense, can know the Lord automatically by the mercy of the Lord. There it is. You don't even have to be educated. You don't even have to know how to read. Right? Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's guru didn't know how to read. But yet, he was a pure devotee who knew everything about Krishna. And Bhaktisiddhanta, who was the most literate person, most educated person, he surrendered completely to Gaura-Kishore Babaji. Right? So, therefore, this knowledge is by revelation, not by study. To the faithful, the Lord reveals himself in his form, quality, and pastimes. The Lord is not formless, as wrongly conceived by the impersonalists, but his form is not like the one that we have experienced. The Lord discloses his form even to the extent of measurement to his pure devotees, and that is the meaning of Yavan, as explained by Srila Jiva Goswami, the greatest scholar of Srimad Bhagavatam. The Lord discloses the transcendental nature of his existence. The mundane wranglers make mundane conceptions of the form of the Lord. It is said in the revealed scriptures that the Lord has no mundane form. Therefore, persons with a poor fund of knowledge conclude that he must be formless. They cannot distinguish between the mundane form and the spiritual form. According to them, without a mundane form, one must be formless. This conclusion is also mundane because formlessness is the opposite conception of form. Negation of the mundane conception does not establish a transcendental fact. So this is a maxim, M-A-X-I-M, look that up, maxim. Negation of the mundane conception does not establish a transcendental fact. Very important point. What does it say? Maxim.
A short, pithy statement expressing a general truth or...
Did it say pithy?
Yeah.
Okay, pithy is another word you have to look up. It means a very short, but something is pregnant with meaning. It's very short, like one word or a short phrase, but it's full of meaning. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a short, pithy statement expressing a general truth or rule of conduct.
Right.
And then pithy means succinct. It's very brief and to the point.
Very brief, but full of meaning. Yeah. Okay, so negation of the mundane conception does not establish a transcendental fact. So this is a maxim. This is a truth, right? In the Brahma Samhita, so we say the Mayavadis, they say, well, he doesn't have a form, therefore, when Krishna appears in the material world, he has a material body because he's formless. But no, that's not true. You see, I mean, they're using some kind of mundane logic, right? According to them, without a mundane form, one must be formless. This conclusion is also mundane because formlessness is the opposite conception of form. Negation of the mundane conception does not establish a transcendental fact. Okay. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that the Lord has a transcendental form and that he can utilize any one of his senses for any purpose. For example, he can eat with his eyes and he can see with his leg. In the mundane conception of form, one cannot eat with one's eyes or see with his leg. That is the difference between the mundane body and the spiritual body of Satchitananda. A spiritual body is not formless. It is a different type of body, of which we cannot conceive with our present mundane senses. Formless, therefore, means devoid of mundane form, or possessing a spiritual body of which the non-devotee can have no conception by the speculative method. There you go. Okay, so like I said, this is like an introduction to the 4 nutshell verses. So what time is it? Yes, so we'll stop right there. Are there any questions? We're going to go on this. We're going to read all these 4 nutshell verses and the purports. So it'll take a couple of days. But it's worth it because this is the core of the whole Bhagavatam. Yes.
So Hare Krishna Maharaj, so we are discussing about this bodily connection and spiritual connection. So for a neophyte devotee or any devotee, like we believe in like a personal form of the Krishna. So that connection comes through. So we have like Saguna Bhakti and Nirguna Bhakti. So does that mean like everybody starts with Saguna and then it has to go matured enough to end up into Nirguna Bhakti, or?
Let's not mix everything up. Saguna Bhakti and Nirguna Bhakti, these are 2 ways of worshiping the Lord. So we worship the Lord in the form of the deity, that's Saguna Bhakti, right? And we worship the Lord in the form of his holy name. You could call that Nirguna Bhakti, right? So either way, there are different ways of worshiping the Lord. Right? Now, what you're saying is, the Saguna Bhakti lead to Nirguna Bhakti.
Yeah.
Well, see, this is where we get into an interesting point. The Mayavadis say that God does not have a form. Right? But we don't say God doesn't have a form. We say that his form is not material, it's spiritual. So, right there is the difference between the Mayavad philosophy and the Vaishnava philosophy. And they are using mundane logic. So it's logic, right? But you cannot understand Krishna simply with mundane logic. You'll make mistakes. This is what they teach in school, mundane logic. This is what Aristotle was an expert of, mundane logic. But that you can't use mundane logic to understand Krishna. Just like in mundane logic, if you read that the stool of an animal is impure, but cow dung is pure. Well, that's an anomaly there, right? You're saying the stool of an animal is impure, but cow dung is pure, but it's the stool of an animal, right? How can it be pure? So, therefore, there's this disconnect that happens. So the Mayavadis, using mundane logic, they make many mistakes about understanding Krishna. So what did the devotees do? Are we not logical? No, we are logical, but our logic is based on the a priori truths of the Vedas, not on our imperfect observations in the material world, or our imperfect understanding of statements. Right? So, an imperfect understanding of statement would be the stool of an animal is impure, but the cow dung is pure. So that would be a mistake of logic for the mundane logic person. Right? How can you say the stool of animals is contaminated, but this one stool is not contaminated? They would say that doesn't make sense. Right? Okay, so the Mayavadis get everything wrong. So for them, there are verses that says that seem to imply that the Lord does not have a body. Like, for example, there's a verse. Let's see, where is that? Let me just see here. There are verses that they interpret wrongly by misinterpreting the Sanskrit. F-O-R-M. Okay, I'm going to have to find this later on. Anyway, when it says that, for example, in the Ishopanishad, it says that the Lord can run faster. The Lord does not have legs, but he can run faster than anyone else. Well, what does that mean? He doesn't have material legs, but he has spiritual legs. So, but if you use mundane logic, you say this doesn't make sense. So therefore, it says we just read it. It says he doesn't have legs. So then, how can you say he can run? It says he doesn't have legs, but yet he can run faster than anyone else. So these are this is a way that the Mayavadis misinterpret things. So therefore, you have to hear the explanation of things by Vaishnava Acharyas. Otherwise, we'll make many, many mistakes, like the Mayavadis. So, Ishopanishad says, Tad ejiti, tad nejiti, tad dure, tad vantike, tad antarasya sarvasya, tadu sarvasya sarvayataha. So, let's look that verse up. Ishopanishad, that's verse number 5, I think, where it says, he is far away, but yet is very near. He doesn't have legs, but yet he can run. You see it?
Mm-hmm.
What's it say?
So the Supreme Lord walks and does not walk. He is far away, but he is very near as well. He is within everything, yet he is outside of everything.
Yeah, so now the Mayavadi reading that, let's say, well, I see it says, he can't walk. It means he doesn't have any legs, that means he doesn't have a body. Right? That's the way they interpret that. But that's not the meaning. He doesn't have a material body, but he has a spiritual body. See? But there are other places where it says arupam, where it says...
Gajendra prayers.
Huh?
Gajendra prayers.
Okay. Yeah, well, so they say, well, see, it says arupam, it doesn't have
Here
a
also
form.
it says.
Huh?
In Ishopanishad also it says.
It's in the Ishopanishad also?
I think Bhagavad-Gita is also in 11th chapter.
Let me see where it is. I should know. Where is it? Arupam. It's in the Bhagavad-Gita also. Okay, I know. 374. Okay, now we have it. This is Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 7, verse number 7. Tato yad Antaram tad arupam anamayam. Ya itad vidur amritaste bhavanti atetare dukam evapiyanti. In the material world, Brahma, the primeval living entity within the universe, is understood to be the supreme amongst the demigods, human beings, and lower animals. But beyond Brahma, there is the transcendent who has no material form and is free from all material contaminations. Anyone who can know him also becomes transcendental, but those who do not know him suffer the miseries of the material world. So, Prabhupada says, the impersonalist puts more stress on the word arupam, but this arupam is not impersonal. It indicates the transcendental form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, as described in the Brahma Samhita, quoted above, Ishvara Paramakrishna Satchitananda Vigraha. Other verses in the Svatasvatara Upanishad 3.8 and 9 substantiate this as follows. Vedaham itam purusham mahantam, and so forth. I know that Supreme Personality Godhead, who is transcendental to all material conceptions of darkness. Only he who knows him can transcend the bonds of birth and death. There is no way for liberation other than this knowledge of that Supreme Person. There is no truth superior to that Supreme Person because he is the supermost. He is smaller than the smallest, and he is greater than the greatest. He is situated as a silent tree, and he illumines the transcendental sky, and as a tree spreads its roots, he spreads his extensive energies. So from these verses, one concludes that the Supreme Absolute Truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is all-pervading by his multi-energies, both material and spiritual. So, in this purport, it says that Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha. That is, the Supreme Absolute Truth, Personality of Godhead, is Lord Krishna, who is the primeval Lord, the reservoir of all pleasure, Govinda, and the eternal form of complete bliss and knowledge. These authorities leave no doubt that the Absolute Truth is the Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. The impersonalist, however, argues on the strength of the Vedic version given in the Svatasvatara Upanishad 3.10, in which the word arupam is mentioned. Right? So, therefore it says in the verse, there is no truth superior to me, everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. So, the misinterpretation of the Mayavadis is a common thing. And we have to hear from the Vaishnava Acharyas to understand the actual meaning of the Vedic Shruti, such as this verse from the Svatasvatara Upanishad. So, therefore, Prabhupada says the impersonalist puts more stress on the word arupam. But this arupam is not impersonal. It indicates the transcendental form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. So when you say that Krishna does not have a body, it means he doesn't have a material body, but he has a spiritual body. Okay. So that is the correct understanding of that verse. And this is explained in other places too. I will get all those other references for tomorrow. Also in the 9th chapter, 11th verse, let's see what that says in Bhagavad-Gita. Abhijanati mam mudha manasim tanam asritaha param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwara. Fools deride me when I descend into human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. So here, it says, there's quotes from the Gopalatapani Upanishad, in where it says, Tadekam Govindam, you are Govinda, the pleasure of the senses and the cows. Satchitananda Vigraham, and your form is transcendental, full of knowledge, bliss, and eternity. So there, see now, this is the correct understanding. When it says he's formless, it means he has no material form, but he has a spiritual form, which is made of Satchitananda Vigraha. Vigraha means form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. Okay, so I'll have a lot more evidence tomorrow of the correct understanding. When there's a negation of something, it doesn't mean that it's negated transcendentally. It's simply negated on the material plane. Right? Okay, so we'll stop right there, unless there are other questions.
And the complementary to that question, Maharaj. So again, when we say spiritual form, so is it like Krishna's in terms of ours is fine, like we have a spirit, a soul, and then body, and Krishna.
Our soul has a form.
Yeah.
Prabhupada explains that also. Your soul right now, it's in your heart. It has a form. That's why your body is a form. It's built on something. It's
Okay.
not built on nothing.
So soul has its form. So that's what called, yeah.
The individual soul, the minute individual soul, it's 1/10,000th tip of your hair, has a form.
Yeah. I mean the dimension also given in Bhagavad-Gita. But then when we do the deity worship, for example, so we have Tribhanga form of Krishna, and then there are different forms of Krishna. So and we say that form and the
Well, we have
soul itself
Lord
doesn't.
Chaitanya, you have Jagannath,
Yeah.
you have Nrsingadev, you have Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman. So, yeah, the Lord can assume any form he wants. And that form is transcendental, it's not material.
So one of my question is, like, as soul has a form, so as it similarly super soul has a form, like Krishna has transcendental form.
Yes.
So how we understand that in context with the different forms? So that form and this Tribhanga form is the same thing, or it just transformed to the Tribhanga form?
There's a spiritual form, you understand? So there's a material form made of matter, and there's a spiritual form made of Sat Chit Ananda, eternity, bliss, and knowledge. So your form right now and my form, we have tendons, ligaments, bones, blood, plasma, heart, liver, all these things, right? If you open up the body, you'll see all these things. But that is simply an artificial covering of your soul, which has a form also, but it's not made of ligaments and bones and tendons and blood and plasma and stool and urine and wax and tears and blah, blah, blah. It's made of this Sat, eternity, Chit, knowledge, and Ananda, bliss. Now, can you understand that? Maybe not, because we're so wrapped up in this material body made of this, heart and liver and gallbladder and so forth, that we can't imagine it. There can be something made of Sat, Chit, Ananda, right? But if you have ligaments and tendons and bones, why can't you have Sat Chit Ananda? You see, they're not. Sat Chit Ananda is not something that is immaterial. There is a material, but it's spiritual. It's not mundane. So, right now, I mean, you don't see your heart, you don't see your gallbladder, none of those things. You just see the skin, but you have a form. It's in a form. In the same way, this Sat Chit Ananda is in a form, and that's Krishna's transcendental body and the bodies of liberated souls in the spiritual world. And in Vaikuntha, all the people have 4 arms. They look very similar to Lord Narayana. And in the spiritual world, they have 2 arms. They look very much like Krishna. But it's made of this different, the spiritual energy. It's not material energy. So if you can make something out of material energy, you can also make something out of spiritual energy. You have to understand that. that's where we're having a disconnect. We say, well, I can understand the material form, but I don't understand how you can have a spiritual form. It's, in other words, because most people think spirit is something that's formless. But it's not. Just as you can make something out of matter, you can also have something made out of spirit. And you already have that spiritual form, but it's covered now by this body. Okay, we'll talk some more about this
Maharaj,
tomorrow.
one more quick question on the form.
Yeah.
See, when we do chanting every day, what form
What?
when we do our routine, when we do our chanting,
Yes.
what form we need to?
What form?
What form we need to think the God and we need to pray? Because
What form do we think of God? Well, what form do we think of when we come in the temple?
yeah, we say Radha Krishna and
Okay. So that's what you should meditate on.
yeah, but when I see in Bhagavatam, there is one picture is there actually. When you meditate, you should meditate only. Srimad Narayana Pharam is one page is there, Maharaj. That's where I get confused.
Well, okay, so here I'm going to dispel your confusion. It's 18th chapter, verse number 65 and 66. So the last paragraph, verse number 1865 says, these words stress that one should concentrate his mind upon Krishna, the very form with two hands carrying a flute, the bluish boy with a beautiful face and peacock feathers in his hair. There are descriptions of Krishna found in the Brahma Samhita and other literatures. One should fix his mind on this original form of Godhead, Krishna. One should not even divert his attention to other forms of the Lord. The Lord has multi-forms as Vishnu, Narayana, Rama, Varaha, etc. But a devotee should concentrate his mind on the form that was present before Arjuna. Concentration of the mind on the form of Krishna constitutes the most confidential part of knowledge, and this is disclosed to Arjuna because Arjuna is the most dear friend of Krishna. There you go. Any doubts now? 18th chapter, 65th verse, the last paragraph. And then there's also 18th chapter, 66th verse, last paragraph. One should be attracted by the beautiful vision of Krishna. His name is Krishna because he is all attractive. One who becomes attracted by the beautiful, all-powerful, omnipotent vision of Krishna is fortunate. There are different kinds of transcendentalists. Some of them are attached to the impersonal Brahman vision. Some of them are attracted by the super soul feature, etc. But one who is attracted to the personal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and above all, one who is attracted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Krishna himself, is the most perfect transcendentalist. In other words, devotional service to Krishna in full consciousness is the most confidential part of knowledge, and this is the essence of the whole Bhagavad-Gita. There you go. It's 1865, 1866. So you have any doubt now about who you should meditate on? Don't meditate on your wife. There was once a barber, right? He had a client, and he was cutting his hair, and the client, whose hair was being cut, he said, "Radhe, Radhe, Radhe." And the barber thought, "Oh, this man is a pure devotee. Look how he's just saying the name of Radha, and tears are coming out of his eyes." So after his hair was cut, and the man was, stopped crying and saying Radha, he said, "Sir," he said, "you are the first pure devotee I ever met in my life." And the man said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You were saying the name of Radhe, Radhe. You were talking about Radharani, Krishna's eternal consort." He said, No, that's the name of my wife." He was crying because he was missing her. Right. So you see, it's very easy to misinterpret things. Haribol. So somebody can chant. Okay. Thank you.
Nice to see you, Maharaj.
Hare
Just came
Krishna.
for the weekend. My sister is visiting from India.
Okay.
So brought her for the weekend to Seattle. And
I'll bring her here
just
also.
came from Mangala Aarti.
Is she here?
No, they're in the hotel, Maharaj.
Okay.
So they're in Auburn. I just said, let me at least.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Haribol. Hare Krishna. All glories to Prabhupada.
Many months, Maharaj, you have not come to give a turn on Facebook.
Yeah, we're really busy here. We're opening up a new temple. Yeah. So, are you leaving soon for a trip?
Yes, Maharaj.
What day are you leaving?
Today.
Oh, wow. Well, we're gonna miss you,
From
huh?
online from India. One more thing is, we wanted to
Go
arrange
ahead.
a class for Adisham Prabhu's place.
Okay.
Once I go there, I'll
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhagati Sadma.
Safe
I
trip.
haven't gone in 6 years.
We're gonna miss you for London
I
Mela.
never missed Anand Mela for the last 10 years.
I know. All right. Well, anyway, have a safe trip, and
Bandha
Say
Mohi
some prayers for us so we can do the
Savadhana
Hare
Mate.
Krishna. Savadana Mate.
Jahara Prasade Bhai E Bhavatoriya Jai.
Janara Prasade Bhai E Bhavatoriya Jai.
Krishna Prapti Ho Jaha Hoite. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Aikya. Arana kori ho mane asha. Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati. Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha. चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेमा भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जाते वेदे गाय जहर चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आधम जनारा बंधु लोके नाथ लोके राजीवाना हा हा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया एबे जास घुषुक त्रिभुवाना प्रभुपाद पतित पावाना Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine. Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Paramahansa Parajika Chastata Satirshi Simadis Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Alantakoti Vaishnava ki jai. Ramacharya Haridas Thakur Prem Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasti Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gaur Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Mayapura Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Ganga Maya ki jai, Jamuna Maya ki jai, Samavela Bhakti ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanand. All glories to the Samavela, voice, assembled voice, voice, assembled voice, voice, Shri Guru and Shri Guru Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The lotus feet
Of our spiritual master,
the
the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By His grace, one can cross the ocean of mortal suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my conscience purified by the words emanating from His lotus mouth. Attachment to His lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with the transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From Him, ecstatic prema emanates. By Him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of His character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We take the shelter of the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavan Ki Jai.